Today, we'll be diving into employment law, focusing specifically on workplace discrimination. This lesson will cover your rights and protections under the law, helping you understand how discrimination is defined and addressed. We'll explore different types of discrimination, including those based on race, gender, religion, disability, and other characteristics that are legally protected. The goal is to give you a clear overview of the key concepts so you can recognize and respond to discrimination in the workplace. Employment discrimination refers to unfair treatment of individuals in various aspects of employment, whether it's hiring, pay, promotions, discipline, or even discharge, based not on their job performance or qualifications, but on certain legally protected characteristics. These might include race, sex, religion, disability, age, or national origin, among others. It's important to understand that this unfair treatment can happen at any point in the employment process, from recruitment all the way to termination. Discrimination can be obvious and intentional, but it can also be more subtle, arising from workplace policies or practices that unintentionally disadvantage certain groups of people. Employers found to engage in discriminatory behavior can face significant consequences, including investigations, lawsuits, financial damages, and the need to implement policy changes to ensure fairness and compliance with the law. This is why understanding and preventing employment discrimination is crucial for both employees and employers alike. Federal law plays a crucial role in protecting employees from discrimination in the workplace. Specifically, laws like Title VII, the ADA, and the ADEA prohibit adverse treatment based on certain protected classes. These protected classes are categories of characteristics that employers cannot use to discriminate against workers. One of the most significant protected classes is race, which covers bias linked to a person's racial identity or traits. Closely related is color, which protects individuals based on their skin shade or complexion. Religion is also protected, which includes not only belief, but also practices and reasonable accommodations for religious observance. National origin is another key category, covering aspects such as ancestry, birthplace, ethnicity, or even accent. Sex discrimination includes protection against biases related to pregnancy, sexual orientation, and gender identity, reflecting a broad and inclusive understanding of this category. Age protections apply specifically to workers who are 40 years old and above, ensuring they are not unfairly treated due to their age. Disability protections extend to qualified individuals under the Americans with Disabilities Act, providing safeguards for those with physical or mental impairments. Finally, genetic information is protected to prevent discrimination based on family medical history or genetic test data. Together, these categories form the foundation of federal employment law, aimed at creating fair and equitable workplaces for everyone. In this lesson, we're focusing on racial discrimination in employment. Essentially, racial discrimination happens when decisions about hiring, pay, promotion, discipline, or even termination are influenced by someone's race, color, or stereotypes rather than their actual qualifications or performance. The core principle here is clear. Employment choices must be based on ability and merit, not on racial identity. Emphasizing workplace diversity is crucial because decisions, treatment, and opportunities should all promote fairness and equal opportunity for everyone. This helps create a more inclusive and effective work environment. Affirmative action is a policy designed to increase opportunities for groups who have historically faced discrimination, especially in areas like hiring, promotions, education, and contracting. It originated during the civil rights era as a way to address ongoing racial inequalities, not just to punish past discrimination, but to tackle its lasting impacts. The debate around affirmative action often centers on when it's legally acceptable to use these remedial preferences under anti-discrimination laws. Supporters believe affirmative action is necessary to counter systemic exclusion and to promote true fairness, since simply having equal rules hasn't always led to equal outcomes. On the other hand, critics argue that considering race or similar factors can be unfair in itself, potentially stigmatizing individuals or clashing with merit-based decisions. This ongoing debate highlights the complexity of balancing fairness, equality, and legal principles in employment and education. Now, let's focus on some landmark decisions that have shaped how courts handle race discrimination, especially in hiring and employment testing. The first key case is Griggs v. Duke Power Co. from 1971. This decision established that employment tests which are neutral on their face but disproportionately exclude black workers are unlawful under Title VII unless the employer can prove the tests are directly related to the job and necessary. This was a significant step in recognizing the impact of seemingly neutral policies on racial discrimination. Next is McDonnell-Douglas v. Green from 1973, which introduced a burden-shifting framework. This framework allows discrimination to be proved through circumstantial evidence rather than direct proof by outlining the steps both employees and employers must take in discrimination cases. It essentially clarified how intentional discrimination claims should be evaluated in court. Finally, Ricci v. DiStefano from 2009 provided important guidance for employers concerning race-based test results. The ruling held that employers cannot simply discard test results because they show a racial disparity, unless there is a strong justification tied to Title VII liability. This decision balanced the need to prevent discrimination with the obligation to manage employment practices fairly. Together, these three cases form the foundation for how race discrimination is legally assessed in employment today. Now let's focus on equal opportunity and Title VII, particularly as it relates to gender discrimination in the workplace. Employers are prohibited from making decisions about hiring, pay, promotions, or working conditions based on a person's sex, pregnancy, gender identity, or any stereotypes associated with these characteristics. For hiring, this means that biased selection or promotion decisions simply aren't allowed. When it comes to pay, employees must receive equal wages for comparable work, regardless of gender. Workplace culture plays a big role too. Stereotypes that limit opportunity can create barriers, and it's important to understand that bias isn't always obvious. It can be structural, embedded in workplace practices, and dynamics without being explicit. Recognizing these subtle forms of bias is key to fostering a truly equitable environment. When we look at wage gaps and unequal pay, it's clear that compensation is not equal across different groups. White men earn the full dollar, which serves as our baseline. White women, however, earn only 83 cents for every dollar a white man makes. The gap widens further for black women, who earn 69 cents, and even more so for Latinas, at just 58 cents. These disparities in pay are not just about gender. They're also deeply rooted in racial bias. These inequalities accumulate through various stages of employment, from hiring to promotions to salary decisions, making it harder for women of color to achieve equal compensation. Understanding this helps us see why equity in employment law is so crucial. In this lesson on employment law, we're focusing on sexual harassment as a form of discrimination. The law identifies two main types of unlawful workplace sexual harassment. The first is called quid pro quo, which essentially means this for that. In these cases, job benefits like hiring, promotions, or continued employment are directly tied to sexual demands, often leveraging the power a supervisor has over an employee. The second type is a hostile work environment, where the workplace becomes intimidating or offensive due to severe or widespread unwelcome conduct. This type of harassment can come from supervisors, coworkers, or even others in the workplace. The key point here is that the overall atmosphere or environment plays a crucial role in making the workplace hostile or abusive. Understanding these distinctions is essential for recognizing and addressing sexual harassment in employment settings. Now let's focus on the important topic of religious discrimination and reasonable accommodation in the workplace. Employers are required to accommodate an employee's sincere religious practices unless it causes undue hardship to the business. This means they should be flexible with scheduling, allowing shift changes when possible to respect religious observances. Employers should also permit faith-based attire as part of dress codes, so employees can wear clothing or accessories that reflect their beliefs. Additionally, there may be times when employees need to pause for prayer or other religious practices during work hours. Overall, it's about creating a respectful and inclusive environment where individuals can observe their faith while meeting workplace demands. Now let's talk about national origin discrimination, which is a key protected trait under employment law. This means it is illegal to treat someone unfairly because of where they or their family come from. This can include their country of origin, ancestry, accent, ethnicity, or any language-related characteristics. For example, it's unlawful to refuse to hire someone just because they are from a certain country or ethnic background. Similarly, mocking or penalizing an employee for their accent, especially when it doesn't affect their job performance, is not allowed. Employers also can't impose English-only rules unless such rules are truly necessary for the business to operate effectively. Lastly, making employment decisions based on stereotypes related to someone's citizenship, culture, or language ability is prohibited. These are all important examples of conduct that goes against the law and protections around national origin. Now let's focus on age discrimination and the protections offered under the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, or ADEA. This law was enacted back in 1967 to protect workers who are 40 years old and above from unfair treatment in the workplace. That means employers cannot discriminate against these workers when it comes to hiring, firing, pay, promotions, or any other terms of employment. The key point here is that the ADEA specifically aims to safeguard experienced employees, recognizing the value they bring. It's crucial to understand that this protection applies to active employment situations, ensuring fairness throughout a worker's career. Essentially, if you're 40 or older, the law has your back against age-based bias at work. Now let's focus on the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA, which was enacted in 1990 to provide federal protections against disability discrimination. The ADA is crucial because it ensures equal access and opportunities for individuals with disabilities, particularly in employment. Under Title I, which specifically addresses employment, the law governs several key areas like hiring, pay, advancement, and workplace accommodations. One of the most important aspects here is that employers must provide reasonable accommodations to qualified individuals with disabilities, unless doing so would cause undue hardship to the business. It's important to understand that the ADA applies to those who are qualified and capable of performing the essential functions of their jobs. At the same time, the law restricts disability-related inquiries and medical exams to prevent discrimination during the hiring process or employment. The ADA is divided into several titles beyond employment. Title II requires state and local government services to be accessible, ensuring that public programs accommodate people with disabilities. Title III focuses on public accommodations, prohibiting discrimination in businesses that are open to the public, making sure that everyone has equal access to goods and services. Overall, the ADA plays a vital role in protecting the rights of individuals with disabilities and ensuring they have fair opportunities in the workplace and access to public services. When we talk about what counts as a disability under the ADA standards, it's important to understand that a disability is defined as a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits a major life activity. This definition is intentionally broad, focusing on how the impairment actually impacts daily functioning rather than just the diagnosis itself. For example, mobility impairments can limit a person's ability to move around easily. Mental health conditions like major depression or anxiety disorders also qualify if they affect how someone manages everyday tasks. Additionally, chronic conditions such as diabetes, epilepsy, or hearing loss are included because they can significantly influence day-to-day life. The key takeaway is that the ADA looks at how these conditions affect what individuals can do, ensuring protections are in place for a wide range of impairments. Now, let's focus on practical access in the workplace, which is essential for accommodation, access, and inclusion. Reasonable accommodations are adjustments or modifications that employers might need to make so that employees with disabilities can perform their essential job duties effectively. These could include things like providing accessible entrances, desks, or workstations designed to meet individual needs. Employers might also offer assistive software, specialized equipment, or modified devices to facilitate work tasks. Additionally, flexible scheduling can be an important accommodation, as long as it doesn't cause undue hardship for the employer. These practices are all supported by the Americans with Disabilities Act, which sets the legal framework to ensure equal opportunity and accessibility in the workplace. When an employee believes they have been subjected to unlawful discrimination, the enforcement process typically begins with filing a charge with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or EEOC. This is the first formal step where the employee submits their claim for investigation. Following this, the EEOC conducts a thorough investigation by gathering information, reviewing evidence, and interviewing witnesses to assess the validity of the complaint. If the issue can't be resolved during the investigation, the next phase often involves conciliation or settlement discussions. This is an opportunity for both parties to negotiate and potentially resolve the dispute without going to court, which can save time and resources for everyone involved. However, if these efforts do not lead to an agreement, the case may proceed to civil litigation. Either the EEOC or the employee can file a lawsuit after the EEOC issues a right to sue notice. Judicial remedies become the final avenue to seek justice if administrative measures don't bring a resolution. It's important to note that enforcement through administrative agencies like the EEOC is often a prerequisite before moving to judicial remedies. Throughout this process, possible remedies for the employee include back pay, reinstatement to their job, monetary damages, changes to employer policies, and injunctive relief to prevent further discrimination. These steps together form the backbone of how employment discrimination claims are addressed and enforced. On this slide, we're focusing on common compliance failures that employers often encounter. One of the biggest mistakes is ignoring complaints about discrimination or harassment, which can create a toxic work environment and legal risks. Another frequent issue is failing to provide reasonable accommodations to employees, which is not only unfair, but also violates employment laws. Retaliation after an employee reports misconduct is a critical error that can lead to severe consequences for a company. Inconsistent application of discipline or hiring standards is another pitfall. This inconsistency undermines fairness and can increase liability. Finally, neglecting essential practices like training, documentation, and prompt investigation can cause serious compliance gaps. It's important to remember that many liability issues arise not from intentional wrongdoing, but from ordinary management decisions that are handled carelessly, inconsistently, or too late. Preventing these mistakes is key to promoting workplace equity and reducing risk. Now let's focus on the core protections all employees have under employment law. First and foremost, federal law ensures equal treatment in crucial areas like hiring, pay, promotions, and even termination. This means no discrimination should occur in these decisions. Secondly, workers are protected from retaliation if they report discrimination or any unfair practices. It's important that employees feel safe speaking up. Third, employees have the right to reasonable accommodations, whether for disabilities or religious practices, enabling them to perform their jobs effectively. Fourth, employees can file complaints either directly with their employers or with enforcement agencies if they believe their rights have been violated. Lastly, protections extend to those participating in investigations or legal processes related to workplace rights, ensuring they aren't subject to any harm or discrimination. These rights form the foundation of a fair and equitable workplace. And discipline processes are based on clear, consistent, and well-documented criteria. This shift helps promote fairness and transparency in employment decisions. Another important change involves religious accommodations. The standards for what constitutes an undue hardship for employers have become more employee-friendly. This means employers might need to be more flexible in accommodating employees' religious practices. Lastly, emerging issues around disability. Remote work and the use of algorithmic tools in hiring and management are prompting new questions. These include how to ensure equal access, prevent bias, and provide reasonable accommodations in a rapidly changing work environment. Overall, these shifts reflect changes driven by legislation, court rulings, and evolving policies that aim to make workplaces more inclusive and fair for everyone. As we wrap up, let's focus on the key takeaways from this lesson on employment law. First and foremost, Building an equitable workplace requires intention and thoughtful design. Compliance with the law is crucial, but creating true fairness goes beyond that. It depends on your systems, your organizational culture, and your commitment to consistent follow-through. To break it down, know the law well and apply it consistently throughout your organization. Hiring inclusively means removing structural barriers that might limit opportunities for some candidates. When complaints arise, it's essential to address them promptly and impartially to maintain trust and fairness. Regular training for managers is vital. It should be ongoing, not just a one-time event. Finally, measure outcomes carefully and create real accountability to ensure progress and continual improvement. Remember, it's about rights, access, and equity working together to create a workplace where everyone can thrive.